sbagliata, messa fuori, c'è Pirlo, ancora Pirlo di tacco, tiro,
Hello and welcome to this special AC Milan Talk Xtra podcast. I'm your host Samit Paul, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend Jason Brown. Jace, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm very good, mate. In shock, but very happy.
Who isn't good? What a time to be alive, JB. Unbelievable. We've scheduled in this special extra show this week as we react to the news that Milan have signed Leonardo Bonucci. Lucas Biglia is set to follow, while Gianluigi Donnarumma has apologised, and all is good in the world again. But first, Jace, let's start with that Bonucci signing. I think the best way to start this is using a quote from Alessandro Del Piero, who I think kind of encompasses how we all felt when we saw this news breaking. He had to say this: "I'm surprised. It seemed like a joke when the news came through. It's very surprising. I never thought anything like this would happen." It's been an unbelievable 24 hours, in truth, Jace. I think I saw a tweet yesterday mentioning Bonucci in Milan as a possibility, and I laughed at it. I laughed it off and I thought, that is absolute nonsense. It's going to go nowhere. That's just one of those summer transfer stories. Fast forward a day, we're literally signing the best defender in Europe, in my opinion. And it's just an absolutely crazy sort of sequence of events, how quickly it moved, and the fact that Bonucci has joined us, which is absolutely incredible. Before we kind of get into different aspects of the signing, let's just go through just some thoughts really from me, and then I'll get your take on it. As far as Bonucci as a player is concerned, serial winner, ruthless leader, experienced defensive stalwart, and I can see him leading this side from the off. And if you combine that with the fact that we've got 7 summer signings who are 26 and under, to add him to the team along with Lucas Biglia, for me that's striking a perfect balance, and those guys can lead by example. I think that's just a really good combination there.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk to me a little bit about the signing. Just give me your thoughts on Bonucci kind of being added, and how highly you rate him and what he brings to the team.
Well, I think in terms of like how highly he's rated, I mean, you talk about centre backs, and if you could have one centre back in the world, it would be Bonucci. I don't know who you'd put above him in terms of what he can bring, not only defensively but going forward, and not even in terms of footballing ability. Like you mentioned, his leadership.
Yeah.
Allegri even mentioned it last year. He said, next season Bonucci will be the leader in the dressing room.
Yeah.
Or did he know it would be the Milan dressing room, not the Juve dressing room? But yeah, it's amazing. I mean, he's like the pinnacle. Yeah, he's still. I just can't get my head around it, to be honest. You know what I mean? No, I'm a little bit. I'm happy. I'm very happy. I would have loved to have seen him in. I generally thought his next move would be to England, but this is a very happy surprise for me.
Definitely, Jace. I'm still smiling now. I haven't stopped smiling since this news came. But that's what I was going to ask you actually, just to stay on that point before we move on. So would you place him at the top of the list of defenders in Europe then? Is there anybody that would kind of rival him, be ahead of him, or is he like you said, the pinnacle?
I'd put him at the top. Obviously, you've got Ramos at Madrid, but again, I think in terms of not only ability to defend, I know Ramos pops up with a few important goals, but we saw in the last World Cup, Bonucci's like his passing ability and his range is absolutely ridiculous. So I'd have to put Bonucci a little bit above Sergio.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree. I mean, like I said, the composure, the vision, the passing ability, playmaking ability to step forward and do what he does in that regard, second to none for any defender. And then obviously you've got the aerial prowess, the defensive solidity. He just ticks every single box in a modern day defender for me, and I'm just delighted. I'm absolutely delighted that he's going to be in the centre of our defence the next season onwards. So
yeah,
cannot be anything but happy. So just in terms of how it happened, obviously it happened very, very quickly. There's talk obviously ongoing from last season where he was dropped by Allegri for the Porto game in the Champions League. There's fresh talk of fallouts during the Champions League final as well. So I think that's kind of the main issue there, why this has happened. And then as you mentioned, you would have wanted to see him in England. I'm sure a lot of Chelsea fans, Chelsea City fans, United fans would agree with you. But I think there was a keenness and a desire to stay in Italy. I think that's kind of tied with his son. I think he was ill last year, and I think family-wise, I think they wanted to stay in Italy, and I presume Milan are the only ones prepared to kind of step up and meet Juve's demands and Bonucci's demands. So that kind of, for me, connects the dots, and that's where we are at the moment. So yeah, it's the way it's happened. It's been a pretty smooth sort of transfer, which is pleasing to see. Interestingly, Jace, Juve have released a statement on it as well, and we've signed him for 42 million euros on the same day that Kyle Walker, of all people, has gone for 53 million pounds to Man City, which kind of puts everything into perspective and makes it sound even more ridiculous.
I think a better comparison, although that's a good one, obviously being on the same day, but I think you look at the John Stones transfer, another centre back who everyone hypes up as being, the next big thing, the next big centre back, and you've got a guy proven going for 14, 15 million less than he did, and you think it's an absolute steal to get him for 42 million euros. I think it was 35 million pounds or roughly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, crazy.
Absolutely, I just couldn't believe it when the figures came out as well. And interestingly as well, they've confirmed that the payments are going to be made in instalments over 3 years. So that kind of, for those guys, obviously the financial fair play and all those other things come into it. I think Milan again have been very strategic and strategized it well to kind of break it down. So we're not spending that 42 straight away, spreading it across the 3 years, and I'm assuming that will help our financial health and balance sheets. That it all counts. Just to stay on that though, so I guess the only counter argument is the fact that he's 30 years old. I have not seen any sort of decline in his game at all. So I personally believe he's still got at least 4 or 5 years at the top still. What does that say about his price tag? Do you still think it's value for money when you take that into consideration, or like you said, he's proven, he's done it, he's 6 titles in a row? Is it worth it? Is that 42 million an absolute bargain, if you like, or is that just an excellent piece of business?
Yeah, I think he's not too old. I hear what you're saying. 30, it kind of used to be. You look at a player at 30, you think, they're on the decline. But I think with modern training techniques and the way the game's progressed, 30 is like the new 20. Really, you look at John Terry's just retired, or not even retired. He's just left Chelsea at the age of 36. I know he didn't play a lot this season, but I mean last season the season before that, he was like the best defender in England at 34 years old. I think Bonucci's got at least 4 or 5 years in him. The Italian game is a bit different to the Premier League as well, so I guess that will help in terms of his longevity. But yeah, I think it's still a massive steal, even though you say he's 30. Got a good amount of time left in him, I think, and the fact that he was at Juventus for 7 seasons. And 6 of those they won the title. It's a massive steal to just everything in context, like what he brings, his leadership, and what he's achieved. I think it's a massive steal.
Yeah, definitely. I think there was an element of it where, because it came out of the blue, it was because we're obviously looking for a midfielder still, which Biglia is obviously arriving, but we're looking for a striker as well. Signing Bonucci just kind of took away from the needs of the team still, but my thinking is that if you can get a game changer like this, it doesn't matter what you need elsewhere. You've surely just got to take that opportunity, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to. You 100% got to. I mean, I can understand what you're saying, but looking at the team now with Bonucci in and the fact that Biglia is coming in, do we need a striker? I don't really know. I think
it's true.
We'll be okay. Can we get by when you've got a man like Bonucci in defence? You're not going to be conceding a lot. So you kind of may have to change your approach a bit, but I think the team is at a place now where I think if the season started tomorrow, we could definitely challenge for the top spot.
Yeah, well, we'll get into formations because that'll obviously tie into that, and I think you're right. I think the talk is that there's still going to be another striker coming. which, the summer that we've had is incredible to hear that more and more's on the way. But yeah, I think there is an argument, given the creative players behind Andre Silva with the formations that we could deploy.
Yeah,
we could postpone that to January, to next summer, whatever it may be. But we'll see on that one. There is talk of Bonucci's wages as well. Apparently, he's going to be the highest paid player ever in Serie A. Again, this is just reports. This isn't confirmation. But at the moment, there's suggestions that he's going to earn 8 million a year, with 2 million in bonuses. But I'm presuming, tying in with what we've just said, a player of his ilk, of his quality, of his class, you've just got to take that opportunity and bring him in and get that immediate sort of success, don't you? So I don't think there's that much that can be argued in that case. But one thing that I did saw was that something that I think you obviously, we've spoken about it previously, which I'm sure you're going to enjoy. He's apparently going to be made captain immediately. And I know we've spoken on previous podcasts about how we both prefer our, sort of commanding centre-back to have that role and be captain. So to have him in the middle, calling the shots, that's going to be another boost for everyone around him as well, isn't it? Yeah,
I think it's perfect. He's shown great leadership skills in the past, and like you said there, I love a good centre back as captain. Do you know what I mean? It just feels like football. It's like how it's meant to be.
Yeah,
I think being an Arsenal fan, my domestic team, like growing up and seeing Tony Adams, it's just, I don't know if it's because of that, and it's just ingrained in me that your captain should be a dominant centre back. That's what I like to see, and I think it would be great to see Bonucci doing that for Milan.
Absolutely. And just looking at it from another angle, this is the first time now we've got a top Italian defender to kind of carry on the lineage behind the likes of Nesta, Maldini, Baresi, sit him next to Romagnoli, and I think the two of them come together with Donnarumma behind them as well. We've got a nice core of Italians there with Bonaventura and Locatelli potentially, and everything just seems to be really positive, Jace. I think I've got not a single negative in my mind about this signing. I love everything about it. So yeah,
definitely. I might have to update the Twitter banner.
I think so.
Get Bonucci on there, mate.
You might have to, my man. You might have to. Just looking at it from a bigger picture in terms of the title race, we got told off, by the way, on YouTube this last week. Ivo correctly pointed out that we neglected Napoli on our discussion last week, which is he made a valid point. We didn't mention them. Got lost in the Juve sort of Roma and Lazio chat. Inter, of course, as well. Where does this put us now moving forward? Because for me, I think Champions League has gone from being an objective to a necessity now, from a sort of footballing aspect and a financial thing. I don't think Milan can afford to plough all this money into this project now, this first year of the project, and afford to slip out the Champions League qualification spots. I think that would be absolute disaster at this point. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that? And then also, does a signing like Bonucci now take us up to the next level and say that, yep, do you know what? This is all about Champions League qualification, of course, but we can now start to aim higher as well.
Yeah, I think it does. The fact that he's 6 times winner, and he's got that experience. I think it's given that extra, especially with the fact that we mentioned. We're coming up to including Bonucci. 9 new players.
Yeah.
So you're going to need that player in there. That's going to be the glue. Going to be the leader of the team. Bringing these players who've never played together before to get them to gel, straight away. So having that in the team, I think it's going to give us a boost. And obviously with the improved quality we've brought in, we should definitely be looking at Champions League as the minimum and seeing how the season goes. If we're still there or thereabouts come the end, we can definitely push on. You look at last season, even though it seemed pretty straightforward for Juve. Who was it? Roma still in it with 2 games left. So
Roma and Napoli, yeah.
Yeah, Roma and Napoli were in it with 2 games left. So I think you can never say never, can you?
No, definitely not. Just picking up on a point you just mentioned there as well, in terms of Bonucci being the glue and stuff. Adding him also makes it an easier job for Montella as well, in that sense, don't you think? In terms of a lot's being made now of the pressures on Montella. He's got to put this all together and make it work. Well, like you said, if you've got a 6-time Serie A champion a 30-year-old seasoned international calling, marshalling the defence and organising people at the back. That's going to make Montella's job a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. It's like having a manager on the pitch.
Yep.
You can, change things or rally up the team during the game, as opposed to, Montella can only do so much like in the pre-match and during half-time. But if something goes wrong during the game, he knows he's got someone there who can put things right.
Absolutely. Nothing to say else, Jace. I think that kind of wraps it up. This is 10 out of 10 signing, no complaints. Is this now at the top of your list out of those 9 new arrivals?
I think it is, yeah. Just because of the everything extra that comes, not just the footballing ability, but everything, the leadership we talked about, the experience, and the fact that it's just come out of blue. It's just amazing, isn't it?
Really is. Now, pleasant Friday night, seeing Bonucci and Biglia on the way. And fingers crossed we'll get those deals done, and hopefully they'll be joining the boys in China for the pre-season tour. We'll get our first look at them. Right, that's Bonucci done. Let's move on to that second signing in Biglia. Joining in a 20 million deal, Jace. It's essentially what Lazio were after. Again, this is reportedly, no official figures have been released. I know we spoke about it earlier in the week in terms of, I thought Lazio would cave. I thought it'd go the other way. I thought they'd come down to see, agree to Milan's offer. I know we spoke about it at length in terms of what he brings to the team and how important he is in terms of, again, similarly to Bonucci, being that glue in the team, stringing things together, being the leader, the voice in the middle of the pitch. Again, with that figure in mind, is this another great signing for Milan?
Yeah, it is. I mean, another more mature player to supplement the youth that we've brought in. Another experienced player. Some in a position that we needed as well. Like I think we mentioned on the last part, it's important that we do get someone in there to sit with Kessie and the other midfielders and just be that kind of that pivot and that steady and calming like presence in the midfield. So two important positions been sorted out today with the two signings, Bonucci and Biglia, and two like I mentioned, very experienced players who will definitely keep their head in times like we saw last season, games where we were expecting an easy game and you get that shock and it's like, how do you deal with it? I think in those situations, Biglia and Bonucci, they won't get flustered. They'll, even if we go down, they won't panic like we saw the team do last year. They'll keep a steady ship and they'll just keep things ticking on and keep things plugging away. And that's the difference between, just missing out on the Champions League and making it, or potentially just missing out on the title and pipping the other teams to the top.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I didn't think of it that as well. No, it's a really good point. Just, like you mentioned then, so we've kind of strengthened the spine of the team now with Bonucci and Biglia running through the middle of it. Well, from Biglia's point of view, I'd just like to add as well that, he's made a great point of the fact that he wants to join Milan. He insisted it was a sporting choice. He wants to make the next step in his career, and he believes he can do that with Milan now, pushing them on. We've signed two leaders from direct rivals, Jace, and for me, that's just genius work from Fasone and Mirabelli again. To address key weaknesses in our own team and addressing it with quality players, but then to kind of take them from your direct rivals as well. It's like the cherry on top, isn't it? It
is 100%. I think that badge, that Milan badge is still a massive draw for players, and I think it's an age thing. I talked about this on our other pod, the Arsenal pod, about the badge not losing its appeal, in a season or 2 seasons of bad football. It's still there, especially with a generation. So there's still, like, to give it a bit of context, there's still people now in like my dad's age in their early 50s who will never see Liverpool another way than the champions. As if Ian Rush is still there, but I mean, they're so far removed. And I think the generation that we are, close to 30 or early 30s, we always going to remember Milan as the Milan. And I think when you see them start to rise again, when you're a player, probably growing up watching Milan, idolising Milan, you think, I've got the opportunity to play in this re-emerging Milan team and maybe bring glory back to Milan. I think a lot of players in the league probably at that age mark want to play for Milan or would see this as a sporting decision as opposed to, you know, moving for money or anything. It's probably been their boyhood dreams, a lot of them, to be honest, if they admitted it. So I think, to hear that from Biglia is nice, but I'm not surprised. I think a lot of players his age probably idolise Milan.
Definitely. Well, it's quite interesting and key that I've seen, you know, with every new signing that's arrived this summer, the first thing they've done is take them through the museum and showing them all the Champions League trophies and the video montages and stuff like that of the history. I think, you know, all that stuff counts, like I said, and it plays on players' minds and they want to be part of that. I know, obviously, the trolls were out and saying Bonucci's obviously lost 2 Champions League finals with Juve, I think it is.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of him pointing to the Champions League trophy in the museum. It's like, well, yeah, he's come to Milan to win the big trophies. So, it's a great time to be a Milan fan, Jay. It really is. No, good stuff. So, yeah, looking forward to kind of, obviously, I think the medicals are scheduled for both of them tomorrow and Saturday. Get those done. Get the jerseys, posing with the shirts. Mirabelli, obviously. I think Mirabelli's in China, so we're not going to have a triple handshake with these two, unfortunately. It'll just be Fasone with them. But no, all good. Looking forward to that. And definitely looking forward to seeing where these guys can take us with the other new signings. So all good. Jace, something else happened earlier this week as well. We spoke about it in the podcast, but obviously we did mention it in that Donnarumma was having his press conference the following day after we recorded. And, you know, if you remember, I did say that I kind of wanted to hear from him and also, you know, not so much an apology, but just an apologetic tone, if you like, and just addressing the situation over his contract renewal, clearing it up, getting the fans back on side and moving forward. I'm happy to say I got exactly what I wanted. This is what he had to say at the press conference. I'll just read it out quickly. I'm delighted and proud to be at Milan. I was born and raised at this club and I never had any doubts about staying in my head. I'm sorry to the fans, but I repeat that I never had the intention of betraying them. I must thank them for all the support they've shown me in these 2 years. That's pretty much spot on, Jace. I think, you know, if you remember, I did say I don't want it to be like a grovelling apology. I don't want too much of it. I just want to hear, just, you know, kind of just address what happened, apologise for it, say you're ready to commit, you're all in for the project, and let's move forward and concentrate on what really matters, and that's the results on the pitch.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's handled it really well. I'm really impressed, to be honest, because I think, like you said, we talked about it in the last part, and I said that I didn't think he would address it, to be honest. But yeah, I think he's done really well. Like you say, it hasn't come across too desperate. He has addressed it and kind of put a full stop at it and said, you know, it was what it was. I didn't intend on hurting you, and I think it's a great opportunity now for not only Donnarumma but the fans just to move on and support him, get behind him.
Yeah. Do you think that will happen now? Do you think that's enough to kind of just forgive and forget, move on? He's obviously committed now for 4 years. Is that enough? Can we move on and just concentrate on getting into the Champions League next season now without having any more drama with him?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, not just his apology. We know it's a great apology, but everything else that's happening with, you know, the Bonucci signing, it puts you in a different mood, doesn't it? You kind of like, you're not worried about Donnarumma, you're just too happy to be angry at him. But yeah, I think he handled it really well as well. I think that helped kind of calm a bit of nerves and kind of extinguish a bit of that anger towards him.
Definitely. Well, I think judging from what we've done this summer, if anyone's interested, we're just going to buy their best player and convince him to stay anyway. So
yeah,
it's all good. We're going to get into the sort of tactics and formation in a bit, but you know, pairing Bonucci, let's assume it's going to be a back three. Putting Bonucci in a back three with Musacchio and Romagnoli, with Donnarumma behind them, Conte and Rodriguez on the flanks, you know, in the five. Where would you rank that as a defensive unit? Not only in Italy but in Europe. Would you put that, you know, in the top 5? Would you like, or you know, how strongly do you kind of rate that unit?
It's got to be up there. I think it's difficult to rate it amongst the whole of Europe because there's still not that many back threes across, you know, Spain and even in the Premier League. I know we're getting more. We had more last season, but in terms of a unit of solidarity and just ability, I think you got to put it up there in the top three, possibly. Yeah. Not even top five, top three with the players you've got in there and what they've achieved, and you see what you think they're capable of. I think they're definitely up there.
Best in Europe, Jace. What are you on about? Just tell the truth. No, it's true. Well, so obviously there's question marks as well. We've got to see them in action all together as well and see how this works. But yeah, no, definitely confident it will be a winning formula, hopefully. Good man. Obviously, with all the transfer talk going on, we've kind of missed the Europa League qualifying draw. That also happened today. Milan will play CSU Craiova in the third qualifying rounds. The first leg's on July 27th. Second leg at the San Siro, August the 3rd. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you for your expert opinion on CSU Craiova, Jason. I'm not sure how familiar you are with...
I watch the Romanian League all the time.
I'm sure you do, mate. I want to look at it from a bigger angle in the sense that with what we've added, with the players that we've added and the team that we've assembled now, how far can we go in Europe? I know, again, it's early to say. We've got to see these guys in pre-season. We've got to see them how they start the Serie A campaign. Looking at the other teams in the competition as well. Obviously, Arsenal. Got to be respectful and say Arsenal are obviously going to be competing in that.
Yeah.
Would you have ranked Milan as one of the favourites prior to the last few signings? And how has your opinion changed with the addition of Bonucci and Biglia now moving forward?
Yeah, I would have put Milan up there. I used to I joked about the Arsenal-Milan final, but in all seriousness, I reckon that could happen if we don't meet beforehand. But with the new additions, I think it depends on how seriously Montella wants to take the competition. Because in all honesty, I think if he approaches it with the mindset to win, we definitely have the players to win. I think if you look at who was in last year's semis and who made it to last year's final, I think this team is better than all four of last year's semi-finalists, including the winners, Manchester United. I think, although United had, the names, they weren't playing to the ability that we assume that this team can play when you look at the individuals that they've brought in. I think they're definitely good enough to get to the final. But like you say, big teams in the competition, Arsenal. Let's assume Liverpool will end up there. Assume Tottenham will end up there as well. Some decent teams. But I think Milan can go all the way.
Fingers crossed. I think obviously you need a large slice of luck along the way. It's never as simple as having the best players, best team, and sailing through. We'll need luck on the way. But no, I'm confident of a deep run, and that would be a dream final, Jace. Arsenal, Milan in the Europa League final. We're all over that.
Perfect.
Yeah, but we'll see. Long way to go. Qualifying draw. Let's qualify for it first. Get through that. Get to the group stages, and like I said, see how Montella handles it. But let's take it from there. Good man. As I mentioned earlier, there will be potentially, things might change with Bonucci now in, but the suggestions are that there still is one big signing left coming up, and it will be a striker. Same names, Jace. Nothing changed in that sense. Still centering around Aubameyang, Belotti, and Kalinic. What would your strategy be with this now? Would you still go all out for an Aubameyang or Belotti, or like you mentioned earlier, with Bonucci now in there, with Biglia now in there, do you kind of change tactic and say, do you know what? We potentially might have enough here. Let's not blow the whole budget right now. We can either wait till January, we can wait till next summer and go for Aubameyang or Belotti, providing that circumstances change, maybe their demands lessen, things change over, 12 months. Or, in terms of, rather than settling for Kalinic if we have to, should we wait long term and kind of progressively build up the squad, at the front? What would you rather do? Would you still like to see that one big marquee signing just to wrap things up and complete the squad, or do you think it's no big rush now?
Yeah, I think the need for a marquee signing's kind of subsided a bit because we've just got Bonucci. If he's not a marquee signing, I don't know what is, to be honest. But yeah, I can understand in terms of for the team, we kind of could do with another striker, but I don't think it needs to be an Aubameyang's, a 60, 70 million or a bit a Belotti or anything like that. But I mean, if they're available and they want to come, and we do have the funds, and it's not going to hurt us financially, I think for the sake of the team, yeah, maybe we should go in for it. But I do think there are strikers out there who could help the team and assist us in getting those top spots, Champions League spots, without us having to spend 60, 70 million. But yeah, I really don't think we need to. It's always nice if we do, but I don't think the necessity is there anymore.
No, definitely not. Do you still have reservations over financial fair play and the funding and stuff of everything that's happening? Because obviously, I'm not going to moan. We can't moan in this summer. This summer has been absolutely incredible. So you can't fault it in any way. But is there anything in the back of your head? Because there are still question marks and a little bit of concern for me, because this is a lot of money being spent on transfer fees, on wages. The wage bill must be rocketing, surely, with the 9 signings we've added. I know people are slowly starting to filter out. We've got Bertolacci moving to Genoa now. We've had Kuchka go already. Lapadula potentially going to Genoa as well. Is there any element of concern for you? Or do you think... Because the way I think of it as well is that Mirabelli and Fasone have proven now that they're not idiots. They know what they're doing. The way they've handled business, the way that they've completed these signings. There must be a strategy and plan in place to not fall foul of financial fair play and all those kind of similar question marks. Is there any doubts for you at all left?
No, I think they seem, like you say, to have approached everything with a clear plan in mind, and I doubt they would have overlooked something as big as this financial fair play. I am a little bit worried by the wage bill, as you said. I'm not so much by the transfer fees, because like you mentioned, there's still players that need to go the other way, which will recoup some funds. So I don't think the net will be completely out of control. But yeah, the wage bill is worrying. But I guess they must have accounted for that and just decided that the wage structure is going to be a bit different going forward. But I don't see them not having a plan in place for controlling that, or maybe they're hoping on increased, revenue will help support that.
Yeah. Well, I think this is going to be the thing now in terms of the Chinese market. We're going to parade essentially 10 new signings over there while we're in the International Champions Cup. It's just a prime opportunity, isn't it, to build those sponsorship commercial deals, get that extra revenue, build the brand, and do what they've planned and set out to do. So...
yeah,
I can't say I'm completely 100% clear on the whole thing and happy, but I'm not going to moan. Like I said, I think we've got faith in Fasone and Mirabelli to do the job, and all Young Hong Lee needs to do is keep sending that money over, really.
Yeah. I think that's a good point you mentioned there. The Chinese market, I forgot about that, to be honest, and it is important when you look at. I think last year when United brought Pogba, they said they recouped, I think, was it 90% of his transfer fee just on his shirt sales?
Yeah.
Something ridiculous like that, because they're so big in the Chinese market. So a big name like Bonucci, or even if we do get an Aubameyang, they could bring in a lot of revenue. And a lot of these big name players may end up paying for themselves just with their shirt sales and their sponsorships.
Very true. That is very true. Well, Jace, let's see. Like I said, I'm sure they've got it under control. They know what they're doing, so we can move forward confident enough, I believe. So keep the signings coming. Good stuff, Jace. We've had a whole load of Twitter questions this week, so thank you to everyone that sent in questions. So let's rattle through these. Stefano, regular listener of the show, thank you for your questions. The first part of it was, does this summer revolution remind you of Juventus in 2011-2012? Yes, but I'm also just impressed with the level of players that we've brought in. I think they're at a stage, a lot of them still young, still with lots to prove. We're building a squad capable of, like I think we mentioned last week, of building that start of a new cycle. It'd be nice to get immediate success. I'd like to say we can win the Serie A title this year, but I think we're built with a long-term plan, and so 5-6 years, hopefully we'll be pushing for the top spot in Italy and in Europe. So from that sense, yes, it is does remind me of that a little. And then in terms of the squad overhaul, Jace, and possible Scudetto ambitions, have you got confidence still in Montella to make this all work? And, you know, like we obviously mentioned it a minute ago, but in terms of the Serie A title, can everything gel together to make this a realistic possibility this year?
I think it can, now that we've got Bonucci, because we haven't just gained a winner and a leader. We've taken one from the current champions.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be interesting to see how Juve react to the loss of Bonucci and how that affects Milan. Obviously, like you mentioned earlier, still got Napoli in there and Roma as well, but Roma seems set to lose a key player in Szczesny, who's going to be either coming back to Arsenal or potentially heading to Juve, actually. Yeah. But yeah, I think we've definitely got the players. It's just about whether or not we get into that rhythm and we gel quick enough. So maybe not this year. I think this year would be a stretch. And as we said before, Champions League qualification would definitely be a successful season. But yeah, in the next 2-3 seasons, I think if we're not challenging for that Scudetto, will be a bit disappointing.
Definitely. I still personally believe third spot is probably the best, not the best that we can hope for. We can obviously hope for much more, but I think it's the most realistic spot, because even though Juve have lost Bonucci, I still believe, as a machine, they're still running. They're still going to be, the team to beat next season for me. Roma, I believe, will drop off. I think losing Rudiger, losing Salah, like you said, losing Szczesny, that's a lot of important pieces to be dropping out. So I think we might see a dip from them depending on what else they do in the market. Napoli, pretty much the same as they were last year. So that continuity, like you said, as well with Milan, whether they're going to have that straight away remains to be seen. But with Napoli, they've got it, got really good players in every department. So I think they'll push Juve. I think they'll probably be up there in second spot. And then I see that kind of opportunity for Milan to come in at third. I think they'll finish above Inter. I think they'll finish above Lazio. And it's just like you said earlier, just about kicking on from there and seeing how the season sort of evolves and hopefully pushing on for bigger prizes. But we shall have to wait and see. Mirabelli Thumb mentioned the question about FFP. He wanted to know a bit more about how we're going to dodge financial fair play and pay back the Elliott loan plus the interest. So obviously Yong Hong Lee took that loan. We've obviously spoken before, Jace, about hedge funds, and I know you don't like them.
Yeah.
So, we just touched on it there, obviously, but is there a sort of there's got to be a confidence, like we mentioned, with Fasone and Mirabelli at the helm, that we're obviously not party to their plan, but there's got to be a plan in place to kind of make sure we're not going to be falling foul with whether it be Yong Hong Lee's deal with Elliott and so forth. Things have got to be in order. Yeah,
definitely. I think, like we said, they seem like they're approaching this with a plan, and this is a massive thing to overlook if they have. I don't think they would have, to be honest. So yeah, I can expect there to be, I'm still a bit unclear with the financial fair play in terms of when it kicks in. Or how long do we have to kind of get the books in order? But I think in terms of the loan, I think that we sorted. I'm not too sure about the FFP, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I think we submitted a plan, didn't we, last month?
Yeah.
And we withdrew it and suggested that we'll have a new one in October. That's a 4-year plan. So I guess we'll have more answers with that if it becomes public knowledge. But yeah, Fasone and Mirabelli are heroes in my eyes, Jay. So
yeah,
they can do no wrong. So I'm sure they're not under sort of valuing anything in this situation financially. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt for now. At Joe Bacciglieri said, please talk about Montella's tactics and formations. What can we expect from Montella now that there's better quality and depth in the lineup? Is it as simple as saying that we're going to go back to a back three, Jace? We're looking at Bonucci's arrival. Romagnoli's there. Musacchio hasn't joined us to sit on the bench. Got Rodriguez and Conte who can play wing back, and I think it gets more complicated the further up the pitch you move, because if you're going to play 3 at the back with 5 or whatever in midfield, then you're looking at Biglia and Kessie. Then it's a case of Suso, Hakan, Bonaventura, Andre Silva, Aubameyang if he joins. That's when it gets complicated for me when you move forward. But is it going to be a switch to a back 3 for you, or do you think Conte Bonucci, Romagnoli and Rodriguez as a back four with Masaccio dropping as a depth sort of cover option?
No, I think it'll be a back three. Like you said, he's kind of brought the perfect back three players in. So it makes sense, like you say, Bonucci they're playing back three with Juve and, you know, obviously with Italy. So it makes perfect sense. And from what I've seen of Bonucci, he seems to just flourish in a back three. So I think to try and put him in a back two, or two centre backs, I don't think he will get the best out of him. So yeah, definitely for me, in my opinion, it's got to be a back three.
It's what we've spoken about before. I think in terms of that back three, we've spoken for Arsenal with Mertesacker. I think it was in the FA Cup final. Bonucci having those two either side of him, not that he's in any sort of shape or form a defensive liability, but having those two beside him gives him that freedom to sort of express himself, doesn't it? Moving forward with the ball, like you said, his distribution, everything just seems to be more suited in the back three, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, yeah, that's a good example. As well, we saw that with David Luiz at Chelsea as well. Him being able to carry the ball forward and have his other two centre backs, you know, him not have to worry about that. So yeah, hopefully we see the same from Bonucci.
Absolutely. At Milan_fan87 is regarding Montella. So he asked, do we need a bigger coach now? He once read that a player should only stay at a club if he has something to learn or gain. Reverse applies for coaches. Should they leave if they have nothing left to teach? And can they teach big players anything new? I understand where he's coming from. Obviously, there's big characters in the dressing room. We've obviously talked about Bonucci's problems with Allegri and so forth. But is there an argument in that sense for you in terms of Montella? Will he be able to keep, you know, the reins on this and piece everything together and keep, you know, everything flowing in the right direction for you?
Yeah, I think the fact that everyone signed knowing that Montella is already there, I think they've got to have at least a little bit of confidence in him as it stands now. So I think he's deserving of the chance this season to see how he manages. And then obviously if this season doesn't work for him, then next season I think probably time to move on. But right now, everyone in the team, all the signings have signed with the intention of playing for Montella. So I think they're going to be receptive to what he wants to try and teach them. And yeah, I think he needs we talked about this, I think before that, you know, he really deserves a chance. He deserves a window. And so far this window is done excellently. So I think he deserves a chance to see how this team that he's put together can really work.
Yeah, no, definitely. Pressure's massively on there, isn't it? I think this is definitely make or break. Like you said, getting all these players in to fit the roles and positions and system that he wants. He's got everything he wants now, and it's down to him and the players to deliver. Essentially, there's no getting away from that. So it'll be interesting to see. Second part of his question was he'd like to consider the mentality of players. So this is with regard specifically to the Donnarumma brothers. Obviously, Gianluigi's elder brother Antonio joins the club this week as well. Should we be concerned in signing brothers? What if one wants to leave? What if one gets injured? Does that affect the performance of the replacement? Specifically in this case, Jace, looking at it from the sort of sibling rivalry, if you like, there's obviously no suggestion it's going to be, you know, sort of a competition. It's Gianluigi's going to be first choice all day long. But what does that dynamic change for you in the sense that putting them together, does that add extra pressure? Does it affect them? You know, is there anything in this for you?
No, I don't think there is. I think it's a positive, to be honest. Yeah, you know, having a brother there to kind of, you know, be there with you, support you. But yeah, I agree. There will come a time when, you know, one will have to leave. Hopefully it's not Gigi. But yeah, I think him being there to learn off his brother would be, well, yeah, Antonio. So confusing. To learn off Gigi would be good for both of them. I think they'll support each other. But yeah, I agree. There will come a time where you know, Antonio will have to move on if he wants to get an opportunity. But I don't see this being a negative at all at the minute.
No, definitely not. No, it's all good for me. I think everyone's happy as they are. So let's hope that continues. Moss asked, do you think it's fair to hand Bonucci the captain's armband after Bonaventura helped guide us through a dark period? And the second part of his question, do you think Silva can be our solo centre forward? Just looking at that first, we've obviously spoken about the centre half being the leader, being the ideal man to have that armband. I get what he's saying. Bonaventura obviously was the most consistent, our top player for 2 seasons when everyone around him was bitterly average. So, in sentimental side of things, it'd be nice to see him with the captain's armband, but as a leader, as a man, you want to kind of gather the troops and, prepare for the big games and stuff like that. It's got to be Bonucci, hasn't it, all day?
It's got to be, for me. And I think the fact that Bonaventura is, Italian as well, he's going to know what Bonucci's about, obviously playing with him in an international level. So hopefully this wouldn't, hurt him too much. I think you just have to put his hands up and say, this guy's obviously, he's more experienced than me. He can do more, but hopefully I can learn off him so that one day I can be, the full-time captain again. Yeah. So, hopefully this is a positive for Bonaventura as well as Bonucci.
Yeah, no, fingers crossed. And the second part, do you think Silva can be our solo centre-forwards? I don't know, Jace. I think from what I saw at the Confederations Cup, because obviously that's the biggest kind of sample that I can take from his, previously before moving to Milan, I think he can. Everything that I've seen of him, the way that he, hounds over the defensive opposition, the way that he can hold the ball up, link play up, create for others, obviously knows how to find the back of the net. I'm a bit hesitant to kind of put all that pressure and responsibility on his shoulders solely, but I think there's enough about his game and enough room for development and improvement to suggest that he probably could do a job as a solo centre forward, no?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like you say, he's running, the way he chases the ball down, he seems not to be afraid of, getting about, putting himself about around the pitch. So having that energy up top definitely lends itself to playing that solo role. So I think he's definitely got the ability to do it. And now with the squad that we're assembling, we've got the players around him to allow him to be a solo striker. So I think it will work.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see that, but things may obviously change depending on what we do in the transfer market still. At VA Jack Sparrow was asking, with the final striker signing, whether it be Belotti, Aubameyang pairing up with Silva up top, what does that mean for Suso? Does that mean he could be sold, or will he be sitting on the bench for you next season?
Ooh, it's a difficult one. I would want to keep him. I can see and understand why he could possibly will be sold, but we still got strikers on the books who I'd want to see go before Suso goes.
Yeah.
Or just general players on the books I would want to see go before Suso. So unless the player himself expresses, the desire that he doesn't want to just be part of the squad, that he wants to be a starter, I think if that happens, then it's best to get rid of him. We don't want him, disturbing the dressing room. But if he's happy, just be part of the team, and he understands that we're in Europe now, there's going to be more games, so you have more opportunities to kind of prove himself in the starting lineup, then definitely keep him.
Yeah, I think a lot's taken out of social media activity now, whether it be transfer speculation or whatnot. But he seems to be pretty bought into the idea of being a part of this Milan project moving forwards. Even today, after the Europa League draw, he was one of the first players to kind of give it a let's go kind of thing about the Europa League. So even that, little touches like that, is nice to see that he's obviously he's keen to stay. And there have been reports this week that neither he nor Milan are interested in kind of in a sale, with Tottenham knocking on the door. So I don't think he'll be sold. But yeah, there is a threat of being on the bench depending on what we do with another striker. And as I mentioned, especially if with a back three, there's only so many roles you can fill, like Bonaventura, Hakan, Andre Silva. There is going to be an odd man out, and it kind of depends on who it's going to be, but depends on whether we actually do go back to that back three first. We'll have to wait and see for that. But no, all good. And the second part of the question, do you think players will refuse to leave now, seeing that we are becoming great again? He specifically mentions Baka and Niang in that bracket. Well, it does present a problem, doesn't it, Jason? I mean, why would you want to leave Milan in the first place? You obviously want to stay one of the biggest clubs in Europe. Looking at the facilities and everything like that, it's obviously easy to see why players hate moving on. Add to the fact that we're building a team capable of winning everything in the long term. That's the ultimate objective. But is it making it more difficult to ship out the likes of Baka and Niang for you?
I can see why it would. Niang is still really young though. He's 22. I think it'd be foolish of him to stay, knowing that he could probably get a decent club somewhere else in Europe who are willing to give him a chance. Baka, I can understand. He's a bit older. He's probably got really high wage demands, and the fact that he's happy. He seems unmotivated to be honest. He seems quite happy just to sit on the bench and collect his paycheck. But I think Niang is hungry. I think he wants to go out and play. Hopefully, Baka wants to do that as well. But I don't see that. But the only positive is that the English teams have so much TV money now that even mid-table teams can afford to pay pretty decent wages. So if you can shift him out to one of those, I think West Ham were at one point interested in him. I think that would be the best way of getting rid of him, to be honest.
West Ham need to show us the money, Jay. Someone put that 20 million euros back on the table, please. Let's get rid of Baka. But no, it's a fair point. And then just as the final part of that question, he also asked, just in terms of money being spent on the players like Bonucci now, will it make it easier for Milan to sign the big stars, i.e. the likes of Modric, Fabregas, Aubameyang? Because thinking back a few weeks now, I did mention, and by the way, just a hat tip to you, you did call Bonucci about a month ago being a potential signing. Yeah. So, fair play to you. I'll give you a shout out on that one. I won't give you another one for a while now. What's your take on that? Because I think my point a few weeks ago was that it's a building process. So I didn't expect Bonucci to be coming at this stage, but with the likes of Andre Silva, Conti, Kessie, Musacchio, I felt like those were the building blocks for the first year of the project. And once you can kind of deliver results and get back into the Champions League with those guys, moving forward, then you can target the big boys like Aubameyang and Modric. We've kind of accelerated that process now with Bonucci. Can you see that being like a sort of more of an appealing, kind of project, challenge for the likes of those guys in a more immediate future?
I think every player wants to play with the greats, and the more greats that you sign, the more greats you attract. So I see that happening. My only concern is that you don't want to flood the team with too many stars, as it were. You want to get the best players out. The best players for the team that will fit. Having to manage too many egos is a negative in my eyes. So. It'd be good to get like an Aubameyang in. I think at the minute we don't need a Modric or Fabregas. We just got Hakan. So that type of player we've kind of covered. If Hakan doesn't work out, then maybe move him on and then go back in for Modric or Fabregas. But I think at the minute you don't want to get too many stars in, because then what are the younger players going to think? Are they ever going to progress? Will it help them? And then you kind of get stuck in a cycle of having to continuously buy stars because your young players aren't developing.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. Interesting one, Jace. It's certainly going to be intriguing to see how we attack the transfer markets moving forward, but all good. And then finally, just to wrap it up, Phantom Specialist asked, what should the team's Europa League expectations be? We've obviously discussed it, but give me kind of a realistic idea of what the minimum objective should be now with the squad that we've got in place. I'm assuming that we're going to get through the group stage. I'd like to think we're capable of that now. As I mentioned earlier, I think there's going to be a lot of luck needed in the knockout stages. There always is with these competitions, but I think we're good enough. And looking at the competition, I can't see why we can't at least make the last four. So I'm going to tentatively go with semi-finals, but obviously the dream and the objective that I'd like to see us meet would be the final. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'd like to agree. I'm going to be a bit more tentative and go quarters, I think, only because you got that stage where the teams drop out of the Champions League.
Yeah. And
depending on who comes down, they may be very, very motivated to try and win, the Europa League, to kind of, to say the fact that they would knock out the Champions League or potentially try and get back in the Champions League. So you always get that kind of those teams that come down and are really intent on proven, that they can still do well in Europe. But yeah, I think quarters, semis got to be definitely getting past the group stages with the players that we've got.
Definitely. Well, fingers crossed, Chase. Hopefully we've got a deep run and then cross paths with Arsenal, hopefully further down the line. And happy days for all concerned. Good stuff. Jace, I think that's a wrap for this special extra podcast, unless you've got anything else you'd like to add.
No, I think we covered quite a lot. It's happy days with Bonucci and Biglia coming in. So yeah, it was a nice pod today.
Absolutely superb pod, mate. I can't believe we're talking about Bonucci being a Milan player. It's brilliant. Good stuff. So, guys, if you want to follow us on AC Milan Talk 1 on Twitter and Facebook. For those listening on SoundCloud and iTunes, please follow us over at YouTube. We're obviously going to be doing these extra podcasts as the season starts. So, give us a subscribe on that. Keep following us. Thank you for all your questions and all your listens. Much appreciated from both of us. But until next week, Jace, that's a wrap. So, nothing left but to say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye to the people.